is going to be a driver to look out for next race. He was coming on strong in the final couple of laps there. He was gaining and gaining and gaining on the leaders.
Hello and welcome back to Closed Circuit Sports. I'm Drew Goldman, and at the moment I'm showing you the results from last year when I ran in the local series at K1 Fishers, the Challenge GP, and out of 71 total entrants, managed to come 10th in the final race of the year, which, even though I only had 2 B main podiums and 1 A main podium in the final round of the year, I felt pretty good about my development because in 2022, I was one of those names at the very bottom, Spinnerisky there, on the outlap and the warm-up for medium, and the finale of our current championship, the Indy Karting Challenge, at what is now known as K1 Circuit Whiteland, because Whiteland Raceway Park was sold to K1 on a pretty sunrise. The bolt on the mount was loose, which is why we're getting this nice wide shot, second spinner. It was rather cold. It was a very pretty day, but it was rather chilly, as you can tell by the carts littered around the track just on the outlap, with everybody trying to get their tires warm in the warm-up. So no one's pushing yet. Not really. This is the outlap. We're all trying to warm up our tires, and 3 people are going around. And thus begins the arc of today's episode, I'll call it. Having tested the kart against a NewGen after this round, I'm going to put that up later to show the side-by-side. We just cut that a little bit short just to give you a little view of the layout, a little view of how pretty it was out there. Driving at sunrise is awesome. So now we're gonna go out for qualifying and just get a good look at it. This is medium again in the morning. The narrative on this kart all year has been trying to get the front to dig, because what keeps happening, and this has been the theme of the year, and I haven't known how to fix it, and we keep on trying to find little setup band-aids, but we think we found the actual culprit. It's just a matter of fixing it now. I think we put the seat too far back at the beginning of the year. This is not one of those kind of karts where there's the little latch on the bottom and you can slide it forward or backward as you choose. I don't think that's necessarily something that should honestly be in a competition kart. It should probably be fixed mounted. If it's a rental kart that you use for test days, then I could see why it would benefit people to have that. But you're just letting people figure it out at that point. They're not trying to compete. In this case, I've been trying to get up to pace all year, and I have been wondering why I'm so far off the pace all year, because when you put somebody else in my cart, they don't go faster than me. And so that's what makes me understand that this year, half of the problem that I've been trying to solve, and I'm saying problem in the context of like math and physics, it's an equation. It's not a problem in that Birels are slower than any other particular kind of kart. They're not. It's just that this kart is a KA design kart. It's the RY30, and I've been trying to adapt it and run it at pace in 206 all year because I was not comfortable financially or otherwise driving in KA this early in my career. I felt it would have covered up for some mistakes that I made, and we got another spinner on the outlap. I think that was Nick Patton. He might come blitzing back through, but we'll see. You can see how much understeer I'm battling here, but I'm trying to bring the tires up to 10, and that's like a dance, because you're trying to get the surface scrub done so that the temp starts to actually dig in to the core of the tire. Oop, we got an issue. I think that was Colten pulling off. This is only qualifying, but how we set it up. Jeez, that was a big slide. So, no front end is basically what we've been struggling with all year. Why are other people able to do things that I'm not able to do with this kart? Why do they have more front grip than I do? I think it's weight distribution. At the beginning of the year, we stuck this kart together out of the box, slapped the 206 on it, and they said, go get him, Tiger. And so I would go out with tire pressures too low because I thought that the range was lower than it actually was, and I was setting them myself. And super simple alignment because they were like, what would you need a faster alignment for? And I'm like, I don't know, to maybe try to come back next week? Like, why would I keep coming out if you're telling me I don't have a competitive setup and that I don't deserve it yet? But anyway, this is part of the reason that I hustled across the street to NewGen, and they have been helpful, but I understand that they do not run Birel. So I have been trying to learn everything that I can about the operating windows, the different limits of each of the different setup adjustments that I can make within this kart, in the front and in the rear. And the rear is pretty limited. You can widen the hubs, you can change the axle, and that's about it. You can change the rear ride height as well, but only by one of 3 settings. And if you want any rake in the kart, you can't use the lowest setting in the rear. So you're choosing between medium and high, and usually medium is the right call, so leave it at medium. And the front, depending on the track you're running, usually run it at the lowest setting, sometimes run it in the middle. I haven't run into anywhere yet where I was actually required to run it up high in the front, even at the street races. So, as you can see, even of limited settings, like that's only 3 settings in the front, 3 settings in the rear, and 2 of those combos you barely use, right? So like, potentially more. Caster settings and camber settings are fairly similar. Typically, neutral or negative for camber, and caster is a rough one. Because if you have enough weight over the fronts, then angling the fronts more vertically as opposed to leaning them further out front of the kart can be helpful for reducing the grip and aiding the turn in theory, making it dartier. So I've had it explained to me. Widening the fronts, narrowing the fronts, widening the rears, narrowing the rears, these things change the geometry. All of these things create the physics problem. These are all the variables in the algebra equation. Kind of pretty quick laps, 55.0 was alright. For now. For how cold it is. For how early in the day it is. But you'll see those times come down over the course of the day. I feel good about what I've managed to get out of this kart in a single year, and the consistency in my performance over 12 rounds and 2 classes. I think I've shown some improvement. It's much more under control now than it was, even when it's sliding. See? Like, the moments that at the beginning of the year I thought were oh shit moments are now, hang on, like that. Just like that. It didn't get away from me. I tried to just let it dig in. That requires a little bit of counter steer, so be it. Just keep it minimal, keep your hands light. I've got that shark fin turned down way better than it was the last time we ran this layout. Can't recall which round that was, but I know we've ran this one once before. Matter of fact, I don't know if we did because of that corner there and this corner here. This was a funky one. This was actually a funky one. Instead of that being a hairpin, it's a flat 90, and it's really fun because it opens up this straight wide. And we come into these long S's. I think they've been calling this one Big V. I don't know. It's a cool layout. It is a cool layout. It's mostly at full throttle. There's only a couple of proper braking points. Times keep falling as the temp keeps rising. So, at the beginning of the year, with all of the grip, and bringing in the little bit of experience that we earned at Daytona, in the Kart Week, in the Exhibition Blue Shot class, which was a great way to be introduced to pro karting as it was more than as a concept, that's for sure. In practice, I guess is the best way to say that, because you had to go knowing that you probably weren't gonna win. That's how you had to go. However, you weren't going to win. You were going to learn. If you go to every race with that mindset, then everything that you get out of it is gravy. Even if that's, well, I learned how not to stall a kart at the start. We have had these issues before this year. We've had a couple of stalls. We've seen a couple more. We've seen a couple of spins on the start. We've been a couple of spins on the start. But we have finished every race in the IKC this year, in both classes. I'm trying to keep that alive today. This could be a drop round. I believe it ended up being a drop round in the standings for the year. They keep your best 10. Of the 12, they keep the best 10. So I'm trying to go for a little bit of gravy here. I think I'm either in 5th or 6th going into the event. I think it was 5th going into the event because it ended up being 5th. But, man, I've always just loved driving. Racing was something I never thought I would actually get the opportunity to do. True racing. And yes, I am knocking rental karts. If you've been running rental karts and you think you're fast because you're faster than your friends, congratulations. Now go try it for real. There are cheap ways to do it. K1's Challenge GP is a great way to start. They're very simple karts to control, and yet the skill gap is there. You have to actually learn the fundamentals of racing on the limit for a full lap, at least 10 laps in a row if you want to run a race. You have to, or you are not going to place, even at the K1 Challenge GP. And then you have to get lucky on pulling a good kart. And then you have to get lucky on the start and nailing everything and not making any mistakes and not getting spun by anybody, not getting missiled into by anybody. Because even if they penalize that guy, you've been penalized as well. They don't really put you back. They used to. They used to try and keep it as fair as possible. Now they're like, okay, that's not a thing that happens in real racing, so we need to stop. And I can't disagree, because you're trying to just discourage contact. You're not trying to discourage being at fault in contact. Green, green, green. But if you've been playing in the sim, and that flashback button is as important to you as it was to me learning how to drive in the F1 games, and feeling like it was impossible and the game must just be a matter of minimizing mistakes, you're correct. But somebody out there is driving perfectly. Big dodge. 2 guys around. Squeak on through. We got a little bit of momentum on Patton here. We'll see if we can hold this spot. Stay with Nick, because we know Nick is quick. At this level, this is only, I would say, one proper level up from K1. Because K1 is a local/regional, amateur/semi-pro competition karting series. But they use rental karts on a rental track. It's a rather simple track. They are rather safe, slow karts. There are other rental leagues in between, yes. Then there's club karts. That's what this is. This is owner karts. This is the entry level to owner karts. This is my machine. And that has been the problem. Not that it's really a problem, but when I was trying to relay information for the last team, they kind of went, interesting. And then did nothing for me with that information. NewGen, on the other hand, have been trying, but there are limits to the way that the setup is. When I asked Matt to drive the kart, so I'm getting passed by somebody here, yep. It's Adam. I think that's Adam Maxwell. I'm alright with that. Unless that's Caden Dwarf, in which case I'm also alright with that. Both of those motherfuckers are fast. Pardon my friend. And they have one of the best setups on the field. Through goes Newcastle. I can't remember his name. I did not think I was that slow out of here. Alright, let's try and hang with him, because I don't think he should have got through that easy. Yeah, the times are coming down. I don't know why I'm so slow. Oh, my data's got issues right now. What? Okay, anyway, it's clocking. I don't know what's up with that third lap, why it looks like that, because that's not correct. We didn't have a spin. Everything was fine. I think it's correct. I think this is the right one. Alright, anyway. I hope I didn't miss something significant. I don't think there was a spin there. No, there were just 2 warm-up laps. That's all it is. 2 warm-up laps and then we went green. So we've been trying to make setup adjustments to widen the front end and free up the rear, is how we keep phrasing it. Because the rear on this current setup is remarkably stable. That's the reason that I was able to get that podium in the wet in round 2, is because this out-of-the-box KA setup that was on it was perfect in the rain. And I just lucked into having the right rear sprocket on it, because I didn't even know how to change that at that point, and I had no support that day, God bless. Besides Levi and his parents, who were willing to give me advice when I needed it, which I appreciated. Sincerely. And at both of the Sierra events, Steven poked his head out at one of those and helped me get back into the finals. So, like, I'm trying to give credit where it's due to those guys for getting me started and letting me know what this game actually was and, like, how much work people would be willing to give me for free, basically, which I wasn't trying to take. I just thought that there was other stuff that would be included, basically, or that you would at least be able to ask for it. And certain teams don't have the resources available, and certain teams do. So I'm looking forward to this coming year where I will hopefully be racing KA more often than not with NewGen. In my Birel, yes, because having tested, the rear on that NewGen is so floaty. It was so different. Yes, I found about a tenth or two in both classes, in both 206 and KA. I found a couple of tenths, I'd say, in their kart that were available for me that weren't there in my current setup. But theirs was so front heavy that I was like, oh. And mine is so rear heavy that I was like, oh. Going back and forth was absolutely enlightening. And letting them test my cart and prove for my sanity that, no, that is different, isn't it? Okay, good. Thank God. Oop, we got an off track. Let's see if we can scoot through. Go alongside. And we outbrake him. Yes. Are we side by side still? No. Let's run it. Awesome. We got an overtake in the heat race. Did he squeak through on us? Yes. Did we squeak back through? Yes. Let's hang on to it. We got 2 to go. Four cycle has been plenty for me to handle this year. It's not like I think I should have been running this kart in KA to start. I think I did everything in the right order, if I gotta be honest with myself. I think investing in a quality sim first was the right way to go. All the way up to direct drive, hydraulic pedals, and VR. At least load cell. Yes, I think it's important. Because there are cheaper ways than others to get into that space now. You don't need a top-end PC to run a Quest 2, and a Quest 2 is not nearly as expensive as the 3. Because it's lower resolution and lower frame rate, yes, it is easier for the computer to manage. Yes, you're making a compromise in quality and frame rate, but you get to actually use it. I do not understand how so many of my competitors in this space are trying to skip right to high dollar events where it feels like it's the end of the world, right? Where this might be the one. This might be your last race for a while because you just spent all of it on this one event. One kid I'm thinking about in particular, who I raced with at K1 last year, who I hope watches my videos because I watch his. I'm happy for him that he got a KA. I'm happy for him that he has a cool helmet. I'm happy for him that he has a suit that makes him feel like Checo Perez. It's great. It's awesome. He makes me happy. The support that he gets from his mom and his brother makes me happy. I love to see it. But man, I was dying to get my driver's license when I was about, 15 and a half. As soon as I was allowed, I got my permit. As soon as I had my permit, I was asking at every opportunity if I could drive us to somewhere and have mom in the passenger seat or dad in the passenger seat, and they'd be like, okay. Because they weren't planning on speeding anyway. They were pretty good drivers. I had to learn how to drive under their supervision, yes, but then I spent so much time driving road cars, it's absurd. Between doing delivery for Jimmy John's and Papa John's and driving Uber once I was 21, almost 3,000 trips, mind you, I had to learn a bunch of different driving styles in the real world. Because Jimmy John's slogan was freaky fast, and they would give us a few orders at a time. I'll say 2 or 3. If they were ready for us, we'd take them. We'd go. Make it a round trip, come back. So the more you hustled, the more you earned, which was great. I loved it. But I needed additional work at a certain point, and I had 3 jobs driving. Because I wanted to be a professional driver, but knew that I didn't have the money, and I was looking really hard to make a connection for years. Learning about how the motorsports industry worked, and striking out a lot. Swinging at pitches that I would have to create for myself, but striking out. We're going back out for the final for medium. I have talked to a lot of people who are way above my pay grade so that I could learn what the sport really is. And at the top, it seems to be a fundraising competition. that does not in any way truly undercut what the sport is. It simply adds a dimension to it. The political dimension of racing is real. And I don't mean political in the context of, oop, we got a spin on the outlap. Son of a gun. Let everybody go through. See where we slip in. It's probably going to be at the rear. We'll see what happens here. Bugger all. Spin on the outlap. It's bound to happen at some point, I guess. On the final is not where you want it, though. God, that sucks. Not in the sense of national politics, not in the sense of left-right politics, but politics in the sense of brands versus each other. Money has power. That's racing politics. So, at a local level, a fairly small sum of money can still bully everybody else off the track for a year, but maybe not 5 in a row. A well-managed career will have more events at lower levels before advancing, unless they're dominating at those lower levels and are ready to advance. But I had to get out of my own way in the sense that I thought that I was really good at this. And then I stepped on the track in an actual competition environment and realized I wasn't. I had to accept that I was a white belt and that I was going to learn from there. But I'm not anymore. And I have to, start acting my experience level, I think. I have been very humble all year and rather timid because of how extended I am in supporting myself financially in this competition space. I got a birthday gift this year that is the only money I've ever received toward racing. Aside from 2 or 3, a handful of times as a kid, getting to do rental carts, but not the kind of, fewer times at K1 than great times. And those aren't competition carts, those are hobby carts, those are barely above bumper cars, okay? Those are, you're learning. There are levels, and I had dabbled. And I have always loved the racing games, and I've always felt like I was decent at them, but that in real life I would be better. Oop! Ooh, I picked the correct side. Contact, and we squeak through. We'll see who comes barreling back through, but at the moment we're chasing Newcastle again. Can't remember his name. We'll see it at the end here. Might have been Par, but I can't. I think that was the last round. Anyway. The process of developing as a driver is not solely done on the track. I got on this issue by talking about mi pequeño hermano Strada. Eric's quick. He is. He's just not ready for KA yet. I hope he gets to run it more next year. He owns a kart, he has the suit, he has the good helmet that he likes and is proud of, and he's starting to do the social media thing. I'm happy for him. But he ran 2 events this year, as far as I'm aware, and doesn't have a sim and doesn't have his driver's license. And God help me, brother. You've done this. Come on. You gotta help yourself. Help me, help you. I really want to. I'm glad you got work. I'm glad you got work. I got work too, every fucking day, but I drive a lot for work. I had to get out of the Uber game once I got carjacked and shot at. Yeah, I had to move on. I had to pick a new job. and I found one after one in the middle. I took a very hard job doing patio restoration that the entire time that I was doing it, I was trying to prove that I was capable of it, right? Like, I had never done proper blue-collar work before. I think that counted. Sweeping sand, rolling on sealer, trying not to huff the fumes, trying to be very nice to the customers, while hauling 50-pound buckets and bags, and all in the sun. It was really good work for a summer. But after that, I was ready to take a brain-oriented job. And I became a surveyor based on a no experience required listing that I was referred to through a family member that was open to the public. And I was like, good. And I just tried to stick with it for a year because that's what she asked me to do. That's Eric Spilling. He's also very fast and has a good free setup on his cart, which I am still trying to copy. If you can hear me getting, like, worked up, I'm not. I'm more like, I'm trying to figure out how to keep this going for myself and how to keep the friends that I've made out here, because everybody is talking about the money, and we're on the cheap end of this shit. So this is a problem that is unanimous throughout racing, universal throughout racing. I remember being asked while I was an Uber driver, giving a ride to the chef for Ganassi. Can't remember his name, shouldn't drop him anyway. But the traveling chef for the Ganassi racing team. And I was telling him about how, God, I hope I get to race in the 500 someday. And he was like, maybe you can, but money is the biggest issue. That's what keeps most people from getting in. And I was so clueless at whatever I was, 23, 22, that I think I said something to the effect of, I'll figure it out. I was so cavalier about it, too. I was like, I'll figure it out. I just didn't want to jinx myself, right? By, like, saying I wouldn't. I might have had the G29 at that point, but maybe not. I might have still just been playing the F1 games on my controller, thinking about how soon I will be able to get into iRacing. But I had to do a lot of list making to find my way in a way that I was confident. Where I was confident buying my own cart because I didn't want to be overextended, right? Because when I went to Daytona, what I felt was this, like, sword dangling over your head. Ooh, another off track. Of, don't crash, it will be expensive. And that does continue all the way up, yes, but in Arrive and Drive, it's worse. There are certain divisions in racing, particularly in ovals, where damage deposits exist, where there are insurance policies, essentially, but not in go-karts, and not in formula racing as far as I'm aware, which means that the model is you pay per event to rent the prepared chassis, and any damages that are incurred to the chassis in the process of you racing it are your responsibility. That's insane. If that's the case the whole way up, like, that's insane. Because now everybody's running on basically one life, unless you have the money to afford extra lives. So, alright. This one's public, so I'm going to drop some free game here. The Jeffrey Earnhardt Racing Experience used to be the Rusty Wallace Racing Experience, and I got to drive, while it was still Rusty Wallace's deal, a late model of theirs around Lucas Oil Speedway for 20 laps and had a ball. They also have, so they travel to all these tracks and do these tests in modified open-wheel cars and late models like old NASCARs and bunch of different options. It's great. It's awesome that they offer this. They also offer an Arrive and Drive real racing experience at select tracks over the course of the year, where people are racing for real in late models on short tracks. And it's so cool that they do that. And you don't need a license to enter. What you do need is the finances to cover your learning experience if you haven't done enough of that learning already. Okay? I don't know what that was there. Maybe that was lap traffic, or we just passed like he was standing still, but I think so. Anyway, unless his engine died or something. I don't know. Couldn't make out who it was as we passed him. But the policy that we were talking about is that, like, okay, the arrive and drive fee was something like $2,000 plus like $200 for the video and like $200 for the insurance policy. And what that policy gave you was protection for damages past $2,500. So if you were to, God forbid, total this late model that you were borrowing, you would only have to pay $2,500 out of pocket. But you're liable for another $2,500. So you gotta read the fine print. Or you can screw yourself financially, truly, by racing. Because, like, what they basically said the policy was that if you were to end up having a $3,000 incident, what you could do is pay $2,500 and be done for the weekend because the damages exceeded your maximum deductible, okay? Or you could pay them the $3,000 out of pocket, keep your insurance policy for another incident, and get back out there, champ, with your same $2,500 protection. But literally, it's like a poker table, where, like, once you're out of chips, you're done playing. You can keep throwing good money after that, even if it was somebody else's fault. We are into, deep into the final year. Somebody was smoking ahead of us, I couldn't see it. A few laps remaining. Anyway, getting consistent here in the low 51s, mid 51. Not fast enough, but faster than we've been all day. And I say not fast enough, faster than I've ever been, man. I gotta give myself a little bit of credit for this. I'm getting faster still. I am not, in any way, at the old man slowing down type deal. My hands are calming down. I haven't even turned 30 yet, y'all. Rumors of my fall off have been greatly exaggerated. I just get this snap oversteer on turn in, where I end up having to sit in counter steer where other people don't seem to have to be. I wish the front had more say, more sway over where the rear went. I end up suggesting where the rears go too much. The rears go where they want. I'm just trying to tell them where to go using the fronts, and I have to tell people that it doesn't quite handle how they'd expect it to before they go driving it, because Derek and Matt have both said, getting out of his cart. So it might be great for KA once I figure out how to drive that package, but KA would not have been the place to learn the lessons that I needed to learn this year. This was better. KA only happens once a day. I am not old enough to qualify for Masters yet, even though some people have asked me whether I am. 2 to go. So if you were to run KA on your kart, you would have to run arrive and drive in the other class, or switch engine packages in the lunch break, which isn't impossible, but is an actual task that does take some time and some actual effort and some actual know-how, most of which I have, but I'm not confident that I would be able to be out there for the warm-up every time for the afternoon, whichever one was first. whether it was KA in the morning or KA in the afternoon, because it would alternate. Same way that 206 light and medium have alternated for us, the morning and afternoon schedules flip every round. The class groups stay the same. So I decided, instead of running in KA and nothing else, to run in 206 as much as I possibly could. And I think I've got a lot of development done this year, even on just 2 sets of tires. That was that birthday gift I mentioned. That was the only thing I've ever gotten for karting, was a set of tires. And I deeply appreciated it. It was a heck of a birthday gift. It was what I actually needed. That's all the support that my racing career has gotten, aside from the help that I've gotten at home in rebuilding. But that stuff doesn't come with a $. That stuff is MasterCard priceless. You're too young to get that joke. Too young. Anyway. Checkers. Fastest lap on lap 15. I can't be mad at that. Crack into the 50s. Thank God. It was a cold day, but as it warmed up over the course of the day, the times were falling for everyone, including me, just at about the same rate as everybody else, so the gap stayed the same. Braden Heber drives a Birel. I believe he also drives the RY30. I know they have a different setup on theirs to mine, but I don't quite know what it is. I've been told 0 camber, 0 caster. I don't know if that's actually the case. Because I would need the rear out wide. And I don't know how much front end that would give me. But hey, it's something I still haven't tried. The alternative is that the seat is simply too far back, because they probably set it as far back as they could within the window to try and give me as much leg room as I could have, because I am a tall boy. I'm about 6 feet tall. I've been told I'm a little bit taller. I don't want to claim anything taller than that, though, because somebody's going to pull out a ruler that takes that inch back. So 6 feet it is. We finished that race in 9th, and we finished 206 medium for the year in 5th, which is more than I could have asked for at the beginning of the year. Out of 37 total competitors over the year, granted, similar to K1, many of those people only pulled up for 1 event or 2 events. They're still on the leaderboard, so I still think it counts, because if they did better, they would have kept coming back. And that's the same thing that happened to me in 2022. I came out for 1 event at K1 and got waxed. I scored the obligatory 1 point for showing up and finished last in the B and was very confused. And went home and practiced. I mean, trained. I upgraded my peripherals for my sim to the point where I could actually call them reps when I did laps, because they were repeatable. I understand that some people can get really good at racing on a T300 or a G29. I was not the one. I needed more. What's unfortunate is that now I've upgraded that sim to the point where it's not very approachable. Sitting down in the sim feels like a real race now, unfortunately, which is what I was going for. But now it's actually kind of hard to get myself in there to execute, because it is a workout now, and I can try and turn it down, but then I feel like I'm leaving some of the thing's ability on the table. So I'm trying to find a happy medium where I can run a full-length IndyCar race happily. We got a spinner. We got Zach smoking over here. This is qualifying for the light class in the afternoon. And the temperatures were much better at this point. It was a beautiful day at this point. But the data wasn't working. That's why we don't have it on the screen right now. There was some little GPS glitch that ended up putting it a few laps behind. but we ended up with our fastest lap in this session, so that's why I included it. Get a little move done here on Zach. He's having some kind of issues with his motor. Clearly, I'm just trying not to cough on his stuff. He passed. Damn! With a dying motor, he passed Carol. So I better do the same. Excuse me, Mr. Carroll. Roberto. Nice guy. Good to see him here again. His poor girlfriend was so stressed about him racing again. He had done a motorcycle thing in between. He has a gnarly scar on his neck from a motorcycle crash that I thought had made him a kart racer. And then he went back, he said, in between these two events that he ran here and did something else on track. I'm like, dude, stay out here. This is actually safer. It doesn't feel much safer because it isn't much safer, but it is. There are less things that can kill you in karting than on motorcycles. Jesus Christ. Anyway, that was just the memory that stuck out about Robert over the course of this weekend. We were talking about the game. We were talking about the game and the levels to it. What I think my mistake was in learning about racing and how to approach climbing the ladder, so to speak, and trying to become a pro racing rider, is that it is financial. And that isn't a bug, it's a feature. You don't get to walk in and go straight to the big table unless you're prepared to lose all of your money. Otherwise, you start at small tables, talking in terms of gambling, which is what this is. This is gambling at high speeds. And I didn't understand that going in. Now I do. Now I do. And I think I need to start spreading that gospel because it changes the game. It changes the way we frame it when we see people crash. Rather than thinking, oh, some spoiled rich kid, he didn't even get hurt. True, he's lucky he didn't get hurt. That kid might be leveraged out to the hilt with his whole family on board. That kid might have just crashed $250,000 of his family's debt. Meaning they have to ante back up if they want to make money in this space again going forward, or he's done. That's a bigger reason why crashes end careers. It's financial. Because at the beginning of your career, you don't have an external backer. It's you. Unless you got a dad, unless you got a mom who have won the lottery in one form or the other, whether they won it in the career, they won it in life somehow and ended up with. If they won the family lottery, who knows? If you don't come from one of those families, or they won the discipline lottery, you know what I mean? Where they are such a hard worker and they built it themselves and they want to give something to you, God bless. Go forth and prosper. The rest of us who have thought that racing is out of reach for your whole life because it's what your parents told you, because that doesn't happen for people like us, supposedly, and we can't afford for your brother and sister to do karting too, so it wouldn't be fair. Even though they didn't want to, they would have if I had done it, so I get it. But now that I was grown, I was trying to find my own way in from about 18. And the only way that I could keep my toe on the bag, so to speak, of I'm trying to be a pro driver, was by doing the pro driving jobs that I had access to at the time. And by keeping my eye on the ball when I went home, and making most of the YouTube videos that I watched about how sponsorships happen. this sport is high stakes gambling at high speeds. There are physical stakes, there are financial stakes. It's real. There are no seatbelts in these bitches, alright? These tires are the same tires they use the whole way up. For KA, I think by X30, no, X30 uses the reds as well. What's different about this class is that it's affordable and that it helps you focus on your fundamentals and what's actually making you lose speed. I know that every time that I get crossed up, I'm losing speed. I have the fundamentals down. I know how to dip it in and peel it out. I know how to save. I'm far too comfortable saving it now.
This is the heat race for medium.
Alright, so GoPro was dead for this round.
Mom and Dad came to see me drive. It's always nice.
I'm gonna let me talk. Enjoy the onboard for the heat race.
Let's go. Come on, we're burning. Motor in daylight. Here we go, going hot. Trying to get the front tires up to 10. It's gonna be tough. Oh shit. Oh shit. Now he's behind us. I did that this morning.
Tyler made it back in time. Levi Wilbur leads us to green. Colin Harden goes around.
Let's go.
We survive. I've been of both minds about whether or not owning the kart has been the right way to race this year. Because at Daytona, I felt like I was borrowing someone's kart. And if I broke anything, they got to tell me how much it would cost for them to fix it. Having my own, now there is the whole I can't afford to buy another one problem, right? So take care of it. But if something breaks on it, and they tell you it's a stupid price, you can Google it and make sure. It's not their team's kart, and so their team decides the prices. Now, having worked with NewGen for most of this season, and seen their numbers and the way that they do business, there's a way that I could run, arrive and drive in one of their karts in one class or both in 206. If I had the funds to do that and practice as well. Problem is, now I own this thing. This Birel RY30, and it belongs in KA. because we're doing everything we can to max out the grip. And we're gonna put it on scales, because at the beginning of the year, I was told that it's not that big of a deal. It's probably in about the right place. We put it as far back for you as we could to give you legroom. Get comfy, enjoy your season. All right, great. Problem is, I don't know what my weight distribution is, and I know that I have no front end compared to other karts. So I think it's either leaned back too far, or I'm sat back too far, or both. And I'm not sure how bad the percentages are going to be when we set it on 4 scales, but I imagine it's probably 40-60 rather than the recommended 45-55. And that could lead to half a second worth of understeer, snap oversteer over the course of a lap, or even a whole second. But half a second would lead to half a second of recovery, so that's what I'm going to call it. Because I'm a little bit more than a second off the pace. Oh, this sucks. And it really feels like a mechanical limitation. And it has since Elkhart. It has since Anderson. It has felt like something out of my control, and getting the engine rebuilt didn't make as big of an impact as I thought it would, aside from reframing me mentally in the space of, okay, no longer am I just out here looking for participation points. I'm looking to see how many points I can pull, damn it. Yes, of course, I am trying to finish the race. But damn it, let's leave everything out there. I know, he got back on my tail real quick. He's running one of these NewGens, which has a really darty front end. And I like it, having driven it. I was about a 10th faster in that kart. At the end of the day, going back and forth and comparing them and trying to make this setup better. But this was after round 12 that we ran that test. Because it felt like no matter how much I improved, there were certain things I couldn't do. And it didn't seem to be different inputs, it seemed to be requiring different inputs. It wasn't me causing it, it was me responding with what it needed, but it not being the right answer for the physics equation. Because you see how calm my hands are. And you see how quick these catches are. And how slight they are. But his kart is being led from the front, and mine is trying to steer the rears. And so this is the problem that I will be trying to address with the team in the off season, so that maybe I have a chance to run in KA in this Birel next year and find myself on the pace. The pace. Because that's why I got into karting, was to get myself on the pace, so that I could take some opportunities like that late model experience and just play with the objective of surviving, so that I could prove to a team that I can take care of a car and drive it near the pace, whether or not I'm winning. I think driving on the pace is the most important thing in early levels of competition. That's what I've been told, is that if you don't find the pace early, you're not going to find it later. Damn it, Tyler. Hell of a block. Anyway, I can't keep up with him. God. Not yet. Not in this just yet. Even with a good ghost on it. I know. .206 was a handful at the beginning of the year. Now it feels manageable. It feels like it's under me. It doesn't feel as scary. And I'd credit a lot of that to how many races I got to run all year. At the beginning of the year, my heart rate would go to 130 every time. Just rattling out my chest. Because I felt like I was playing a $6,000 hand of poker every time. Because I bought a new kart and put a good motor on it. No, I wasn't using new tires every session. I kept being told that I didn't require that yet. And I'm sure they were right at the level that I was at the beginning of the year, and it has risen. It wasn't bad at the beginning of the year, but I was just so edgy all the time. So on edge about how it was going to go today and whether I was going to be okay and whether everything was going to stay. Yup, I think we're through that now. I think that's going to happen at big events now, bigger and harder fields, and especially going up in classes. But in terms of keeping my head for a race start, yep, we're there. We're good. In real life, we're good. Because by running 12 rounds, this is where I think I've succeeded. My iRacing career started in 2020 on a G29 with a little upgraded spring and the brake pedal. Got the VR first, upgraded all of that, got to the point where it was giving me some real reps, and I pretty much stayed in that mid-thousands iRating because I was trying to climb the licenses. I was trying to learn how to take care of a car that was more expensive than I could afford, and I was trying to treat it like it cost the amount of money that it actually cost. Nobody else does, though, when you're racing. And so it would help my safety rating. I would finish races. I would get more laps in, and I would be comfortable. And at the end of the race, I would finish where I was supposed to based on pace. Then I went racing in real life. After having already accrued thousands of hours driving road cars, I do feel like I could pilot a late model, a Legends car, a fast kart, a shifter. If I had the money, I would love to. What I've been learning are the financial lessons along the way, and I've been scaling up, I believe, at the appropriate rate, which I'm encouraged by. And I'm trying to assess that here in the off season as I pay off the amount of the season that did go on a credit card. We're gonna be out of the hole by the time the season kicks back off. It's fine, but shit ain't cheap, dog. For real. And the reason that I'm saying that running this kart chassis in the wrong class, quote unquote, at the 206 kart all year has been the right decision is because if I had run all 12 events in KA, I would have 24 races for the year, hopefully a handful of practices, at least as many as I've gotten, the night before and then other Mondays and Sundays and weeks off and all that good stuff. I still wouldn't know whether or not I belonged in that class. I know that I belong in this class. It's a matter of whether I can find my way to the front with this chassis or not. Moving up from here is where I'm going to run into that again. The butterfly, the heart rate, the, how's it gonna go? Now, from here, I'm so comfy, it's more like, okay, let's see what comes our way. We start from here, we try to work our way forward, we try not to lose any places, we try not to crash. Okay? And not necessarily in no particular order. Like, we're trying to make up places, yes. But he was faster than me the last race. So first objective is don't let him get away. Second objective is pass him. And this has kind of reframed the way that I watch racing as well, as a fan. Understanding how hard some of these battles have been, that I've had 10 lap, 12 lap, 15 lap battles with people trying to overtake one guy. Gives you a different appreciation for what happens when you're watching IndyCar, when you're watching F1, even when you're watching Indy Next as well. Because those races are high dollar pay. We were talking about F4, I've heard that it goes as high, at least as high, as $30,000 for an arrive and drive weekend. That's $10,000 a race. Cause it's 3 races in a weekend. It's $30,000 for the weekend. Good God. Just to test it, I heard it's 15. That's insane. Right? So like, I'm gonna end up driving a whole bunch of iRacing cars. Whether I drive them in racing conditions or not is up to how much I love that car and want the experience of racing. But there are a lot of cars I have access to right now for a test day or a race day. Just have to pay for it and have to be able to cover whatever happened that day if something out of my control happened that day. And some of these cars are more than I can afford. I would trust myself to do a supercar experience. I would trust myself to test a Miata. I would trust myself to test an F600. Like, there are certain cars that, God forbid, something went wrong. It would take a couple of years for me to get back to racing, but I would get back to racing, I imagine. I would get out of the hole, I imagine. It could be the last day you end up driving a race car, for sure, but then you have a story about the last time you drove a race car. That's not all I'm looking for, I gotta be honest. I really want to race as fast as I'm allowed to, as fast as I can financially find myself. We really have been out here all day. It's November. You saw sunrise during the warm-up, and now you see the lights coming on for sunset. By running my own kart, I got to run light and medium all 12 rounds. So rather than running in 24 KA races and hanging on for dear life and getting to the end of the year and going, okay, I think I get what it is now, and I can be at peace with the questions that I had about racing, whether or not I could be good. Because I would have been mid. I would have been aggressively mid. Here, I was prepared for that. I was prepared to develop. I went in with that as the objective. And so the pace of my development has been the thing I've been fighting all year. And in 206, the mistakes make themselves obvious to you when you make one. Correcting it is the issue. Once you're up to KA, there's so much sensation that you have to know where you're already trying to put the thing before the corner to be even anywhere near the limit. So I'm using Eric as an example, and it's not a fair example to Eric because he did a lot of things right. It's just that I would have advised him to do other things first so that he could then earn better to continue competing. Okay, because like he came out for one club race here that he ran with us at NewGen, or excuse me, a doubleheader. It's the doubleheader, and he did pretty well. He really did pretty well for a guy who ran one race in the rain with no rain tires. He had used tires on them and ran them the whole weekend. He had no decals on the kart at all. It was a Kart Republic that he bought on Facebook with a KA on it. No idea how much time was on the head. No idea how much time was on that build. And then after running that doubleheader with us, went out and ran a USPKS event at Newcastle and did about how I did in 206 at Root. I didn't feel good about my performance at Root. And so I project that onto how he must have felt about that experience at USPKS. Problem. Now I'm glad that he's looking at it from the positive angle where he's like, hey, I got to run a pro karting event. That's what I wanted to do. Good, man. I'm happy for you. However, what I would advise is that rather than paying $1,500 for entry and having to get at least 2 sets of tires, like some kind of 2-drink minimum at a comedy club, running at Root, where they said you could only run 2 sets of tires max, and where I still got cooked good by the limit of how fast these 206s can go. And I believe they ran KA at Root as well, but I wasn't in it. I wasn't able to pay attention to it. That shit was plenty for me to handle, but over one weekend I only got to run in 3 races. Okay, they were big races. There were multiple practices. There was a qualifying session, but there were 2 heat races and a final. And Zero was pretty similar, where it was like 2 heat races and a final. And I thoroughly enjoyed all of those experiences for what they taught me, for how high they showed me the ceiling could be in these classes, and how fast the fastest classes of these karts go. But I'm really glad that Root did not cost me $1,500 to get my clock cleaned the way that it did. Like, yeah, I finished like 23rd or something. I barely got lapped in the final, which was a long race and on a long layout. And God, it killed me that I got lapped in the final corner, because I did not want to impact the outcome, and I feel as though I did, which is part of why I've hesitated to drop it, because I didn't have anything positive to say about that weekend. So God forbid I had spent 3 events worth of budget on that one event route. Instead, I got to run 1 Route 66 event, 2 Zero events, both street races that I was looking forward to, and a dozen club track events where they kept changing the layout in twice as many races as otherwise I would have been able to do. So literally, like, instead of 24 races, it was 48. And those 48 are obviously just the club championship then. So like Root, Sierra, so there were 2 races at Sierra that I didn't get to run in, so we'll say that I ran, no, I started one, I just didn't finish it. Okay, so I ran 5 at Sierra, plus the 3 at Root. So 8 plus 48, 56 races in this chassis. In 206. Only DNF'd in 3 of them total. One of them I DNS. Sorry for using acronyms. Did not finish and did not start, or DNF and did DNS. That was lap traffic there that we were just navigating real quick. I'm glad that I like driving as much as I like driving, because racing seems to only happen while you're on track. There are moments where racing happens on track, and when it can go for a good stretch, that's a good race, that's a good day. But when you end up just out there pushing as hard as you can on your own, that's when you have to love driving, because there's a big gap behind me and a big gap in front of me. This is where my kart belongs at the moment, and I'm driving it to its limit, because when Derek took my kart out, and Derek is on the pace, he only managed to go about 2/10 faster than me, 2.5, 3/10 faster than me. And for me being a second off the pace, that shit made me feel great. Because fine, he has a better braking point than me at 2 spots, cool. He wasn't able to make it do a second faster. if he were able to get it to turn laps on pace, I wouldn't be touching anything. I would just be going and getting coaching. But the ceiling on this thing is only 0.3 above where I have it. And that is not close enough to even really improve me one position, I don't think, over the course of the race. We'll see at the end what the gap to the next guy is, and if we multiplied out, 13 laps by 0.3, would we be there for just the one more position? But, man. It's a physics problem. And God, I'm so glad that we actually seem to have isolated the issue. That it is the front end, period. But the experimenting process is going to happen, I think, with the KA. I could. Here's the thing. Oop, little excursion. That was my fastest lap there on the last one. Cool. And by a margin, too. Damn. And we go off track. So this one is not going to be the one, but anyway, we got a good lap in there on 13. I could continue to tune the chassis with the 206 that I own, and then strap the KA on it, and not change much about the setup, and try to run it the same way, just with twice the power and twice the torque. Actually more than twice the power, more than twice the torque, but anyway. They have stock engines that I could rent for practices, so I could do that, but it would be fewer of them. And, man, I might be able to run this thing in both classes, especially if we keep tuning the chassis toward being balanced. Because what's crazy is that this one has a much more secure rear than their car. We've seen Tyler spin a few times, but he's fast in that thing. I am much less likely to spin because the rear is so stable. However, it's so planted that I can't get it to move the way it needs to for me to turn it in and carry all my speed. I end up scrubbing too much speed by staying away from the brake pedal because these are spaces where other people aren't having to brake because their rear is just following the front, and I have to convince it. So the more we can get the balance toward the front without making it spin happy, the closer we should be able to find ourselves to the pace. In both 206 and KA. So that may be the most efficient way forward. But the line is different for the two. The KA handles differently entirely. The power band is different. The braking zone is different. The counter steer is comfier. But we were able to just drop it on this machine here and have a hell of a day. And that will be the next video. It will be me showing you the test, where I got to run 206 NewGen versus my 206 Birel, and NewGen KA against my Birel KA as well.
You had a
And it was kind of amazing that the gap was only about a tenth for me by the end of the day across the chassis.
everywhere that I'm trying to play. Thank you. But the more grip you have, the more the grip goes into the pavement, and that makes you slower too. So it's such a delicate balance.
It's been a long year. We've run a lot of laps in this kart itself. And it is better than it was. I am better than I was. Ha, my dislocated pinky from work that I had to put back in. Hadn't even had a chance to talk about that yet. Anyway. Yeah, that happened before round 11, and we played through it. Sore, yeah, but the tape helped.
Tyler's looking, was like, where's the other guys? And they're both back there. I was like, what happened? I spoke to him and he spun out.
Oh,
I was sympathist to him. I was doing like
I got Liam coming to the stand.
Sure.
That's too funny.
He was great in round 11 and here as well. A solid way to end the year. We're gonna take a ride back with Liam to the garage, past the others, back toward NewGen. Who I am looking forward to working with again next year. Hopefully more one-offs, hopefully more different venues, hopefully more runs closer to the pace. There will be more practicing next year. There will be fewer events, and that is okay, because I will actually be able to run some races in the sim hopefully next year, instead of this dominating everything the way it was. And hopefully we get to drive a car at the end of the year, sometime next year. There's plans, there's options, there's possibilities. It's just about what we can afford. So goes the game. Sitting out Daytona this year, though, has made me absolutely sad. So I really hope that next year the big goal is to run either a KA or a KZ at Daytona Kart Week. Doesn't matter where we finish, just matters that we run. That's my big goal for next year, is Daytona Kart Week. I sincerely appreciate all the work that NewGen have done helping me try to figure out this Birel, because their Hasa chassis are different. They are much more front heavy and much more light in the rear. Just naturally by virtue of the way that they set it up. So there's a chance that we'll be leaning toward their kart for Arrive and Drive next year, but it'll be in the interest of trying to get some of that to rub off on this, because I don't think I'm getting rid of it. I really don't. Somebody would have to make me a solid offer, or I'd have to be able to like directly trade it in for a kart that somebody had a bunch of setup information on, like the Haas chassis, right? But I don't know. We got options. There's possibilities. There's potential. He got right into winterizing it for us. He's gonna start like siphoning the fuel out. This was it. This was the finale. This was the season. And we finish in 5th in both championships in the point standings after 12 rounds ran, 10 rounds scored. 5th. And I can't be mad at 5th. Do you get a trophy for 5th? No. Do you get to stand on a podium for 5th? No. But there were like 27 and 30 different drivers who all ran in these owner classes with me over the course of the year. And I didn't have to beat many of them to finish well for the year. I learned a lot going from the CW garage over here to NewGen. And I'm not ruling out working with them in the future. It's just a matter of knowing what I need in order to be set to go, to go out with them, so that it's not like, oh, I hit a wall and I'm done. Because that happened at Anderson, where we couldn't get Elkhart. We couldn't get the axle out. And so I couldn't put the new one in.
All right.
There was no option to run in the finals.
So you want to see it? Drive safe. Thank you.
If I had a team like NewGen with me for that event, or even one good mechanic, and Luke or Derek or Liam or Nick or any of the others, rather Nick, Christian, anybody, they would have known what to do, and I would have been able to help, and we would have been able to get back out there. But we did not have the tools, they did not have the time to help me get back out on track. That's Travis and Levi, because they were helping me out of the goodness of their heart. I had only paid for transport. I had not paid for them to be a mechanic of any kind. And that, I'm finding, is the issue, is that you can go to have fun, or you can go to compete, and the two have different lists of requirements. They cost different amounts, and they come with different amounts of practice. Next year, I think will be a lot of going to have fun and seeing what falls our way and how high up we can climb without getting in over our head and all that goodness. I'll probably do some more work in the sim because I've taken basically the whole year off from the sim because this was the priority, and I got back into classes, and that took a bunch of time. I've been on the road a lot for work, and yeah, the sim has not been an option really lately. So I've been really grateful for how much time has been dedicated to karting this season, because I do feel better at the game. I feel better at the sport of racing. If I were to go out and do an F600 race next year, after getting an SCCA license, I don't feel that I would be in over my head, aside from the fact that I wouldn't be able to buy another one if I crashed it. But those now feel like the biggest go-karts rather than feeling like the smallest race cars. I think F1000 now feels like the smallest race car. and those are still not affordable. It's like a $30,000 car, $20,000 to $30,000 car. But it has a Formula style suspension in the front and rear, as opposed to a solid axle in the rear and a puck suspension in the front. Like, those karts are awesome. Those F600 karts are amazing. But they're 1,000-pound go-karts with the 600cc Super Sport engine behind you. They have paddle shifters, so it feels like a car. It's perfectly centered, and the engine is behind you, and you're inside it. It feels like a car. But it's pretty much the biggest supercar. Definitely the goal. I gotta say, F600 is the entry-level race car that I think that I could afford someday. F1000 is superbike engines, and front and rear wings, and that's just one step across the line into actual Formula racing. Those are competing with F3 cars and F-regional cars and Indy Pro cars.
Okay.
It's amazing. They're absolute darts. They're arrows. I have an offer to test one of those, but the problem is it costs $5,000. So
She's saying we left our carts in the way, but I don't know whose they are.
there are too many options for my wallet and my schedule to consider next year. I think we're going to end up focusing on KA and seeing how many 206 races we run, seeing how many KZ tests we might be able to squeeze in next year, and whether or not we might get to run something on an oval as well. No spoilers, but we'll see. Thank you for joining us for this season of the Indy Karting Challenge on Closed Circuit Sports. If you wanted to watch more of the actual coverage, the coverage of the front of the field, so to speak, you can do that with Kart Chaser. We love them over there, and we really appreciate all the coverage they gave us this season. Big thanks to NewGen for all their support. Thank you to CW Kart for the chassis itself and the initial support and learning how to float in this sport. I appreciate everybody who has helped make this possible for me, and I look forward to seeing you all next year. See you in the sim sooner, though. Peace.